Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishwamandaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisheshanavani Prashyati Deshtarane Namo Vishwamandaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimate Namo Krishna Goswaminiti Namane. Magana Tibananda Shakadunjana Shakaya Chakshunuminitabnena Tashmaya Shri Gadvainma Shri Chaitanya Manobista Stapitam Yed Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramanam Parantikam. So first I'd like to ask the blessings for all the devotees assembled. Hare Krishna and all near and far. Hare Krishna. My name is Nandini Devi Dasi, and I'm a disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj and a grand disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who, by his causeless mercy, crossed a perilous ocean to deliver all of us. None of us would be here if it wasn't for the causeless mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we are reading today from verses, 7:15, 30 through 40. And so let me pull that up. My little Veda page, 7 through 40. And it's on the board. So let's see, our 7:15, 30 is the first verse. And would someone like to read the translation to that verse? I'd love to hear from the devotees. It purifies my consciousness. Jai. Okay.
One
All right.
One who desires to conquer the mind must leave the company of his family and live in a solitary place, free from contaminated association. To maintain the body and soul together, he should beg as much as he needs for the bare necessities of life. My dear king, in a sacred and holy place of pilgrimage, one should select a place in which to perform yoga. The place must be level and not too high or low. There, one should sit very comfortably, being steady and equipoised, keeping his body straight, and thus begin chanting the Vedic pranava.
While continuously staring at the tip of the nose, a learned yogi practices the breathing exercises through the technical means known as Puraka, Kumbhaka, and Rechaka, controlling inhalation and exhalation, and then stopping them both. In this way, the yogi restricts his mind from material attachments and gives up all mental desires. As soon as the mind, being defeated by lusty desires, drifts towards the feelings of sense gratification, the yogi should immediately bring it back and arrest it within the core of his heart.
Oh, thank you.
Text 34. When the yogi regularly practices in this way, in a short time his heart becomes fixed and free from disturbance, like a fire without flames or smoke. 35. When one's consciousness is uncontaminated by material lusty desires, it becomes calm and peaceful in all activities, for one is situated in eternal blissful life. Once situated on that platform, one does not return to materialistic activities.
One who accepts the sannyas order gives up the three principles of materialistic activities in which one indulges in the field of household life, namely religion, economic development, and sense gratification. One who first accepts sannyas but then returns to such materialistic activities is to be called a vantasi, or one who eats his own vomit. He is indeed a shameless person.
Hare Krishna.
Sannyasis who first consider that the body is subject to death when it will be transformed into stool, worms, or ashes, but who again give importance to the body and glorify it as the self, are to be considered the greatest rascals. It is abominable for a person living in the Grihastha ashram to give up the regulative principles, for a brahmachari not to follow the brahmachari vows while living under the care of the guru, for a vanaprastha to live in the village and engage in so-called social activities, or for a sannyasi to be addicted to sense gratification. One who acts in this way is to be considered the lowest renegade. Such a pretender is bewildered by the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should either reject him from any position or, taking compassion upon him, teach him, if possible, to resume his original position.
40. The human form of body is meant for understanding the self and the Supreme Self, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, both of whom are transcendentally situated. If both of them can be understood when one is purified by advanced knowledge, for what reason and for whom does a foolish, greedy person maintain the body for sense gratification?
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So I guess I am going to read verse 7. Right. So bear with me, my Sanskrit is not the greatest, so Hare Krishna. Ya pravraja gahat purvam Davak prapa panat purna Yadi sevatyatan bhikshuha Davai vatya apatrapaha Yapran rapravajagatat purvam Vivagava panat purna Yadi sevatata bhiksha Savai vatya apatrapaha Yapravajagat purvam Vivagava panat purna Yadi sevatata bhikshu Savai vatya apatrapaha. So word for word, ya, one who. Pravaja, being finished. For good and leaving for the forest. Right? And being situated in transcendental bliss. Grahat, from home. Purvam, at first. Trivarga, the three principles of religion. Economic development. Are we going to continue, or I'm reading that? Religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Hare Krishna. Avapanat, from the field in which they are sown. Punaha, again. Yadi, if. Sevita, should accept. Tan, materialistic activities. Bhikshaha, a person who has accepted the sannyas order. Saha, that person. Vai, indeed. Vanta ashi, one who eats his own vomit. Apatrapaha, without shame. So the translation which we read again, one who accepts the sannyas order, gives up the three principles of materialistic activities in which one indulges in the field of householder life, namely religion, economic development, and sense gratification. One who first accepts the sannyas, but then returns to such materialistic activities is to be called a vantasi, or one who eats his own vomit. He is indeed a shameless person. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Materialistic activities are regulated by the institution of Varnashram Dharma. Without Varnashram Dharma, materialistic activities constitute animal life. Even in the human life, while observing the principles of Varna and Ashram, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grahastra, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, one must ultimately accept sannyas. Okay, here we go. Tulsi Saki. Okay, here we go. The renounced order, for only by the renounced order, for only by the renounced order can one be situated in Brahma Shuka, or transcendental bliss. In Brahmashuta, one is no longer attracted by lusty desires, and indeed, one is no longer disturbed, especially by lusty desires for sexual indulgence. He is fit to become a sannyas. Otherwise, one should not accept the sannyas order. Sorry. Okay. Therefore, one should not accept the sannyas order. If one accepts sannyas at an immature stage, there is every possibility of his being attracted to women and lusty desires, thus again become a so-called rahastra, or victim of women. Such a person is most shameless, and he is called avantasi, or one who eats that which has already been vomited. He certainly leads a condemned life. In our Krishna conscious movement, it is advised, therefore, that sannyas and brahmacharya keep strictly aloof from the association of women, so there will be no chance of their falling down again as victims of lusty desires. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Well, when Tulsi Saki told me that this was the verse I was going to read, I said, I don't think I want to read this verse. Really. So I had some different comments. I definitely I definitely took some notes on this one. So let's try and unpack this verse a little bit, see if we can get some realizations about this. One thing I just wanted to comment on, I remember a class that Srila Gurudev gave about, lusty women, and he also said, what about lusty men? So I remember that comment. So that is to be considered. We know in our society, many times, women have been victim to lusty men, abusive men in the early years. So both things are there. So we have to be very cautious of both things in our lives. Let me put on my little. Okay, so here we go. So a couple of things I wanted to comment on. The first thing I referenced was in the CC Adi 1.64, and we know this verse, in the age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of horse sacrifice, which of course we know that King Yudhisthira was renowned for this, and it was described, even though we think, oh my gosh, horse sacrifice, what is that? But actually it was very purifying yajna, and very costly to perform these yagas. And it was described that the horse would then regain a youthful, beautiful body once again. So we're not talking about abuse to animals. Just wanted to make that point. So the offering of cow sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of flesh to the forefathers, a man's begetting children by his brother's wife. So this verse was in the CC. So let's discuss this a little bit. So regarding this verse, there were some comments that Prabhupada made about there's different aspects of sannyas. I don't know all of them, but I know one, which is called karma sannyas. And this is when a sannyasi would leave home completely and go to the forest. So that was definitely not recommended in this age. And actually, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the beloved spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, he practiced Daivi Varnashram, and he took up the Tridandi sannyas order. And in order to, preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. So he introduced this whole process. Now, so we can understand that it's forbidden in this age. And even Sarvabhauma, when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he warned him, oh, my dear Lord, you're very young. Please be careful. Right? So in that regard, many young devotees, very young, 20, 24, took sannyas. Why? Why did Prabhupada give such young men sannyas? Because he was trying to establish and push forward the Krishna conscious movement, and somehow or another, just exactly for the reason Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he commanded respect. And in that way, he, at a very young age, left the goddess of fortune, his beautiful wife, and took sannyas. So at any rate, a couple of points is that, if one feels, this was some quotes from Srila Prabhupada, there's no harm if one feels unfit to take sannyas that he enters the grihastha ashram. If he feels he's weak in one place, doesn't mean he should stop fighting. Prabhupada said, never give up the fight. Never give up the fight. He shouldn't stop fighting, but rather he should be situated. If he's agitated or doesn't feel that he can maintain at such a young age these sannyas vows, Prabhupada didn't want them to dive back into the material world. He didn't want him to leave. He said, stay in the fight. Get situated. If you're agitated, get situated. Go into Grihastha ashram. He gave a really nice example about Gajendra and the crocodile, which I really liked. He said, one must stay in one ashram that is suitable for him. One should not go away and be attracted by Maya. Taking shelter of Krishna as Gajendra did. He said, one must stay in the ashram. One should not go away to fight the crocodile of Maya, he said. And he should stay in the fight as Gajendra did. So I thought that was a beautiful analogy. Pastimes of the crocodile and Gajendra, and how for, I think, was it 1,000 years, they battled. And it was very challenging because, you know, the crocodile was of the water. And Prabhupada equates that to the Maya in his comment. And Gajendra remembering his previous birth, he actually prayed to the Lord and was saved. So I thought that was a beautiful analogy that Prabhupada gave. And there's another comment, Lord Chaitanya says, Shtane Shita Shuta Gatim Tanvan Manobi. One may be in one position or another according to destiny. But in any case, one must continue to hear the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, regardless of whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. So, you know, in that regard, I was reflecting on a few devotees that I know personally. One, Hari Sori Prabhu, that, you know, took sannyas, served Prabhupada. Naturally, we know him. He wrote all the transcendental diaries about his personal pastimes with Srila Prabhupada as serving him. But for some reason, he felt he couldn't maintain this sannyas order. So, you know, he married I remember Dwaita Chandra, a dear friend of mine, when we were living in San Diego, he introduced him to Sitala Devi, who is another exalted devotee and has written beautiful books about Narottam Das Thakur, special. So at any rate, you know, he could not maintain. So I'd just like to tell a little bit of what Hari Sori Prabhu did. So he has been a part of the, and I remember being in Mayapur, he was a part of what is called the Bhaktivedanta Research Center. This is in Calcutta. So he headed up this whole process, this whole thing, 20,000 pieces of Vaishnava literature. You know, he has helped to catalog and organize for posterity, for the future generations. And he did this because this was a personal instruction Prabhupada gave him. So here's a wonderful example. You know, here, you know, so how do we work this? If a sannyasi falls, you know, it's like he's eating vomit, basically. However, if we look at the Acharya, the pure devotee, the Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, he was an ocean of mercy and compassion. And so he understood, and there's comments there how, you know, how these young disciples were totally really unfit to take sannyas. But it was like he was trying to do the needful to push things forward. And so he advises that better not to take sannyas, better to be honest and enter Grihastha ashram and raise Krishna conscious children, right? So another devotee, Madhuvisa Prabhu. I remember a beautiful class that Gurudev gave about Madhuvisa. It was an older class. He was in Australia. And he was commenting because Madhuvisa left sannyas, I think I might have a date here, 76. And it was very, Prabhupada was in Honolulu at the time, and it was very heartfelt for him because he personally trained up Madhusuda Prabhu. So, but nonetheless, he left. And he went back to Australia. He didn't go, he's from Australia, he didn't go and fall into Maya. He did marry, he had a son. But nonetheless, in this comment of this class of Gurudev, he comments that Madhuvisa Prabhu has a brilliant mind, and he has a razor-sharp memory of Shastra. He can quote everything from all of his years. So also during that time in Australia, he headed up major Rath Yatra festivals, huge Rath Yatra festivals. He organized Street Sankirtan, huge, in Sydney and in Melbourne, and he had a double-decker bus, kind of like the Radha Damodar party. He had and traveled all around, trained up devotees. So here are two examples of sannyasis that could not maintain their sannyas, but they did exalted service for Srila Prabhupada. So yes, there is a silver lining in all of this, and some of the other verses I wanted to comment also. There's comments about householders and entering grahastha life and living with children. So the difference naturally between a grahastha is that they're following the regulative principles, they're following the orders of the spiritual master, they're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, on their rounds, as Srila Prabhupada minimized, 16 minimum they follow, and they're raising their children in Krishna consciousness. So this is very exalted. And there are devotees in the community, just like our beautiful temple president here, Nisringarupa, and his wonderful wife, that are raising Krishna conscious children. She teaches mridanga to all these children. So special. You have Shyam Keshava and his beautiful wife. I mean, I was on the altar dressing a week ago, and his daughter leads Gaur Artik in the evening, raising such just heartfelt, beautiful children. Achyuta Govinda also, big book, does books all the time. Beautiful children, beautiful wife. They cook. Prema Charu and his wife, they're on the altar. I was on the altar dressing. They were dressing in the evening, Radha Kalachandji. So this is very exalted. And Prabhupada said in his comment that such a grahastha is as good as a sannyas. As good as a sannyas. So this is, and then I was reflecting on days gone by. We have devotees like Indra Nilamani, who was a householder, and she was, at the time, the biggest book distributor in the world. Indra Nilamani. And then Yoga Maya, who went out for years on book distribution. The mother, Neela Madhava, oh my gosh. And I was talking to Chaitanya the other day. We were reflecting on the blissful early days at Kalachandji's when we were both serving there. And I said, I so remember Neela Madhava on the Christmas Marathon going around and distributing books. But she was so smiling, so beautiful, so enthusiastic. and people would give $20 and $50 tips to her. They were so appreciative. And Prabhupada liked, Gurudev liked that. He liked the idea of cultivating not just a restaurant, but to try to cultivate people to not join the temple, because who joins the temple? No. Make your home a temple. Chant Hare Krishna, associate with the devotees. He really was appreciating that. And in the day, you remember, when people would, brahmacharis used to walk up and down the hallway, and Gurudev said, no, this is over. You're not going to be doing this, because guests were coming, and he wanted to make a beautiful atmosphere. So he didn't want anyone bowing down. Exactly. So I was also reflecting in the early days how Srila Prabhupada really established his movement. First, I wanted to comment back up a little about sannyas, and how Prabhupada said better to be honest and in this age be Krishna conscious in Grihastha ashram. But he also said, if you are strong, then you can take sannyas, like our Tamal Krishna Maharaj, like our Radhanath Maharaj, like our Giriraj Maharaj, like so countless many who took Krishna consciousness in their very youth, very young, but they were staunch and strong, and they maintained that sannyas order continually. So we have to make that distinction also. And also, I was reflecting on the early days, how Srila Prabhupada was so supportive and enthused and engaging all of his grihastha couples, like Mukunda and Janaki, and like Gaurasundar and Govinda, and like Shama Sundar and Malati, and so many. I mean, they were all originally in San Francisco. Shama Sundar had the idea, I want to go to England and I want to meet the Beatles. And indeed he did. Indeed he did. And he became very close with George Harrison. And a matter of fact, when George was leaving his body, two people were there, Shama Sundar and Mukunda Maharaj. So special. So we cannot minimize the purity and potency of Grihastha ashram, as contrary to Grihamedi ashram, where they don't follow any of the regulative principles, and just absorbed in family life, So there is a difference. We make that distinction, but nonetheless, I think it's very glorious that Prabhupada, in the early days, especially, I mean, I don't know if anyone has read Govinda's book, Sandalwood and Roses, but it is the sweetest. Is it the sweetest book? So sweet, how she took care of Prabhupada when he had the stroke, and brought him by the sea, and just, she said he would come out and smell like sandalwood, and she would put roses all over his room and serve him so beautifully. And Malati, traveling in India, cooking for Srila Prabhupada in the back of a van, and all the devotees. How amazing. So these are exalted householders, and we have so many in our community, so many with yeah. So now, we raised our children, and Keshava lives in Mexico, and Jason lives in Colorado. And so here we have 5 grandkids now. So how does that work? They say, oh, you're attached to your children and household life. And yes, we are. and we are attached to our children. We want them to be nice devotees, and we try our best. We give them prasadam. I remember in the early days, Bhadra was always over, and we'd have a bunch of kids and birthday parties there, and always, it was a beautiful, beautiful time in those days. So I guess the point is that we have to somehow or another figure out. I know householders in this community have got it completely down with their children. They're at the Gurukula, and they're just, oh my gosh, they're just so wonderful. At the programs on Friday night, these children come up and they're so affectionate and they're just wonderful. So now I have 5 grandchildren. So how does that work? I'm attached to every one of them. I've got a new one that's six months old. But somehow or another, I just try to give them Krishna consciousness. I cook and offer food. I chant Hare Krishna. And even I had my little Serja, who's now 8, chanting on my little, she was attached to my clicker, so she was chanting Hare Krishna. And little Rezo now, he's 4. I said, Rezo, are you going to chant Hare Krishna? He said, I don't know, Nani. So we watched on my phone Little Krishna, and there's certain ones that they don't get scared of, because sometimes those demons, they get a little scared. So he saw that and he went, oh, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna. So it was really great. So that's the blessing of somehow or another connecting Krishna consciousness, even as old grandparents with our grandkids, like that. So, Prabhupada, in closing, Prabhupada said in a lecture, a couple of things, but he said, especially in your country, to take sannyas is very difficult, and it should not be given, neither should it be taken. He said, actually, he says in sannyas in this age it's forbidden. But if you're very strong, he said, if you are strong, then you can take sannyas. And that's why I mentioned all these stalwart devotees. Just I mentioned a few that are, very young. And when, now our Giriraj Maharaj has retired in Vrindavan. I think he took sannyas when he was, 20, maybe 24. Served Prabhupada along with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. They would go out to make life members. They were instrumental in helping to establish the Mumbai temple. That was, Giriraj specifically was, vitally important. Prabhupada, they also helped raise funds for Vrindavan. Gurudev, Radha Damodar Bus, sent scores and scores of thousands and thousands and thousands to help build Mayapur. So, so now our dear Giriraj is retired in Vrindavan, holy Vrindavan, and let us pray. Let us just say a silent prayer for him. He was so supportive always in this community. When our beloved spiritual master left, he came over and over again. And I had this picture in my wallet, and I showed it to him. It's Gurudev and Giriraj Maharaj. And I asked him, I remember we were sitting there, I said, I have this very picture, let me show you. And he said, yes, that's when we were in Vyamasura's cave together. So how does it line up with this verse? I would like some comments. How does this line up with this verse of a sannyasi who falls? And yet we see the Paramahamsa, the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, showing so much mercy and and encouraging them not to leave. Stay in the fight, he said, stay in the fight. If you can't maintain, stay in the fight. And look at the exalted things, both of these devotees. I'm sure there's countless others, but we can think how many devotees the Prabhupada made. 10,000? Was it 10,000? 5,000 disciples? And I thought it was 10,000. And how many left and fell and went into the material pool again? You know, many. How many, where are they all? Many we don't see. But many are still doing so much service. Chakri Prabhu just poked his head in, and here he is, a senior dedicated devotee of Srila Prabhupada. And he has launched this amazing, weekly Harinam in front of traders, near traders, and distributing so many books. And it's just, this is so exemplary. He's always been a big book distributor, always. And he's got a beautiful wife, Vishnu Priya, who is just right beside him. Amazing cook. Just take Darshan, how gorgeous they dress. Shri Shri Radhakala Chanji Ki Jai every Thursday. It is like windows to the spiritual world. So beautiful, so ecstatic. So many beautiful fragrant flowers on the altar. So all glories to their service. So anyway, I thought if anyone would want to comment on this particular verse, I don't know if I should read the the comment again, but anyone have any comments about this particular verse? I could pull it up again. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. Any comments?
This verse actually is, it's very heartrending for anyone who's did take sannyas. And I mean, this was very hard. But even harder than that was the shame that Madhavisa Prabhu had to endure.
He did.
From his godbrothers.
Prabhupada personally
and he got so
him.
Upset. Srila Prabhupada got very upset when he heard that Madhavisa had been shamed by his godbrothers.
Yes.
So that, to me, is even more is that. So the devotees backed off and they showed him proper respect.
Thank you.
And he was able to come back.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was, because it's a very heavy verse.
Right.
And
it is a heavy verse.
And I was reflecting on many of the examples, like you mentioned, some very nice ones. And I was also remembering Gaur Sundar Prabhu when he left, and I believe, the temple was sold, and he took the money and bought another property, and
that's right.
So Prabhupada went to Hawaii to visit, to go to Hawaii, and he wanted to go see Gaur Sundar, and he actually flew to another island to go visit with him.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, the meeting didn't happen. Gaur Sundar didn't show up. And so Prabhupada was quite upset, and the devotee said, okay, well, Prabhupada, we could go and, see, I think they had a farm or some different things.
Mm.
And Prabhupada said no, and he just wanted to go back. That's the only reason he wanted to go there, was to see Gaur Sundar, and if he wasn't going to see him, he wanted to go back to the other island. So he went back to the other island, and then Gaur Sundar Prabhu came to that island to visit Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada asked him, what did I do wrong that you would leave me? He wasn't concerned about the money. He was just concerned about the individual. And so I think I'm appreciating what you're highlighting. I think Srila Prabhupada showed us by his personal example so much compassion for all the devotees. And so, things happened, devotees, fell down and had different issues, but he never rejected them. And then the other thing that it brought to mind was Arjun Prabhu was with Srila Prabhupada in Hawaii. Arjuna Prabhu, Mother Vrindavan Bihari, they used to live here in the community.
Right.
He was with Srila Prabhupada in Hawaii, and he asked Srila Prabhupada a question about what happens if your disciple stops following. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, then he's no longer my disciple.
Mm-hmm.
And there was kind of a pause. And then Arjuna Prabhu asked him, well, what happens if he or she starts following again? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, then they are my disciple again.
Mm.
And just Prabhupada's compassion, that
Yeah.
it's not that, okay, you've made a mistake and you've fallen down and you went away. And the last thing that I was remembering as you were talking was Tamal Krishna Maharaj's last Vyas Puja here in Dallas. When he gave them...
Everyone.
I'm sorry?
Glorifying all of his
Yeah,
godbrothers.
he gave the morning class as he usually would do, as he always did when it was his Vyas Puja day. And he was here personally. And he spent 45 minutes of his hour class glorifying every single one of the spiritual masters that had disciples in Texas and, Oklahoma, the areas he was responsible for. And he even glorified those that had fallen away.
Kirtananda Swami.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
appreciated
He
the
appreciated
service they did for Srila Prabhupada, and he glorified them so much. And so I'm just appreciating this mood. We're in the material world, and I can speak for myself. I have, ocean of faults and shortcomings, but just appreciating the compassion of Srila Prabhupada and that Tamal Krishna Maharaj showed us with devotees, that we help each other, we lift each other up, and we're all going to struggle from time to time. So I think Prabhupada showed by his personal example the balance of that compassion. And so I thank you for the wonderful class. And the last thing, I said so much, but the last thing I wanted to say is it's so nice to have you giving class. And I appreciate you and Rupanuga Prabhu, and I'm hoping that we'll hear from all of our senior devotees in the community, that they'll all take turns giving classes, because I think it's so important for us to hear from you all and to develop those relationships more and more. So thank you so much for the
Hare
wonderful
Krishna.
class.
I just want, Hare Krishna, you have a comment? Kartikeya Prabhu?
Hare Krishna. I really wanted to hear your class. Unfortunately, there's problems with the internet today, so
Right.
I had to rush and come, so I'm late. I'm
Hare
sorry.
Krishna.
But anyway, I don't know. I was reflecting in this because I heard you preparing for the class, so I have a sense of what the verse and the purport are. Again, I think, this is the Bhagavatam was spoken, to the sages of Naimisharanya, and then put into words by Vyasadeva. But that was, I don't know how many thousands of years ago. And they were referring to people, they were referring to people that take sannyas. I mean, those days, I imagine things were very different with the commitments that devotees will take to certain things. I don't know if they took in consideration or they knew or didn't know that 5,000 years later, somebody like Srila Prabhupada will come
Hare Krishna.
and do what he did, which was made Krishna conscious available for the Western world and for the 20th century. And he did a lot of different things. Number one, he wanted to create some Brahmans because he knew his time was short, and therefore he wanted to. He offered the sannyas order that it was really successful in most of the cases. Well, not most of the cases, but in many cases. You look at all these when you look at everyone, Radhana
Yes.
Swami, Indradyumna Swami, Gurudev, I mean, on and on and on, and the kind of preaching that they doing. I mean, he allowed women to do Didi Puja and so many things. And so time, place, and circumstance.
Yes.
That I think that's what we gotta consider in terms of sometimes they say that there is seemingly so many contradictions in the philosophy or in the Bhagavatam, and we have to I don't know how to understand them, but as the commentaries talk about these contradictions, they figure out how they are not contradictions. I cannot do that because I have a puny, tiny brain.
We need the guru.
But they figure out how to do it. So that's my take on this heavy verse, like you say, that was a time, place, and circumstance. But then, by the mercy of Guru and Srila Prabhupada and our gurus, I remember, and representative of Lord Nityananda, and I remember in Gurudev said in one tape that you probably already all saw. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but he was talking to Srila Prabhupada about this devotee that seemed to be deviating a little bit and all that, and Gurudev in his heaviness, Prabhupada, what are we going to do with him? I can't tolerate this anymore. And Prabhupada said, no, and he said, and he came back again, Gurudev, and insisted on that. And he said to Gurudev, and Gurudev said, why? And he says, because you don't understand the unlimited mercy of Lord Nityananda.
Hare Krishna.
So that's what Srila Prabhupada gave us.
Jai.
And so, we are in this Kali Yuga, and all glories to these devotees. But if Prabhupada knew that it may be many banana peels on the way and will slip and fall, but he said, get up, come back, and let's keep going.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So I'm just going to close with this beautiful verse by Srila Sanatana Goswami on chanting. I thought this was a nice way just to close the class really quick. All glories to the all blissful holy name of Sri Krishna, which causes the devotee to give up all conventional religious duties, meditation, and worship, when somehow or other, uttered even once by a living entity. Jai Chakri Prabhu. The holy name awards liberation. The holy name of Krishna is the highest nectar. It is the very life and my only treasure. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Jai. Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Ki Jai. Jai. Oh, Hare Krishna. Ki Jai. Panchakalpa Trivasya Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Many verses on chanting, but I particularly love that one. And of course, we have Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalu.
Acho